it's kind of a fast life, and fast lives can be fancy. Just look at
Mhm.
Hollywood, right? You can get caught up in that cycle and not know who you are by like a weekend. Like it can really
Mhm.
grasp you like any other addiction. And you don't want to lose any job you're in.
Welcome back to Muse on the Mic. I'm Riley.
I'm Emily. Thanks again for joining us on another awesome episode of MUSE On The Mic. As always, we're getting controversial. I love this. We're going to
Yeah.
smash some shit. Riley, what are we doing?
We're going into another Twitter thread. No surprise here, but there's some juicy stuff there, guys. Sex work Twitter, like Emily's mentioned before, is where it's at, or at least it is for us. So
Yeah.
this post that we're going to read and chat about was from Demina Snow, and we are basically confronting stereotypes of what a sex worker can be.
Love this. I love this so much. We are the epitome of this. It's so cool. Ah, I love it. Before we jump in, because I'm going to read you all this Twitter thread, make sure
Yeah.
you like the video, subscribe to the channel, join us on Patreon, of course, because that's where all like the spicy sauce is. And look out every Monday and Wednesday for new episodes, especially if you're a patron, because then you get both. And surprises on Sunday nights. We're going to be mixing it up, and you never know what you're going to get. I love it.
So fun.
So, before I read this, I think we should let anyone new know who we are and that we own a spicy rub and tug in Toronto, Canada, the happy ending kind, the fun kind, the naked kind, the slip and slidey, orgasmic kind. And the pod, we just talk about everything about sex work, sex, relationships, boys, girls, everybody in between.
And a lot of
And there's
controversial topics.
a lot of controversial topics and a lot of stigma comes up a lot. And what I love about this one that we're diving into today is we're about to take a hammer to a lot of it. And I friggin' love when that happens because it forces change, at least in some minds. And that leads to societal changes. And that's what we need. So, is everybody ready? Riley, strap in.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm
It's a
going to make
long
some
one.
notes.
Good. Okay, so when a sex worker takes up space as a leader, a change maker, or a visionary, it doesn't just disrupt stereotypes, it rewrites the entire narrative. It leaves evidence that we can be everything they told us we couldn't. Let's unpack that. A thread, right? I love it. Applauso, applauso. Something fascinating happens every time I post about my nonprofit work, my education or advocacy for the LGBTQIA plus and sex worker communities. Inevitably, somebody will stumble into the replies with, let's say, fantasies are better suited for my spicy channels instead of this. We live in a society that thrives on binaries, good or bad, leader or follower, respectable or disgraceful. These binaries are limiting and designed to control us. They create small, rigid boxes that people are afraid to step out of. But sex workers have always existed outside those boxes. When you take up space in a world that insists you stay small, you force people to confront their own beliefs. When I advocate as a nonprofit leader and still exist unapologetically as a dominatrix, it disrupts their idea of what is possible. Disruption creates discomfort. I'm
Mm,
smiling because I really love this.
it's so good.
That it's so good, right? That discomfort often leads to reactionary behaviors, confusion, dismissal, or even hostility. Because for many, it's easier to project their own discomfort outward than to reflect inward. And in quotes, she says a few things here. Sex workers can't be leaders. She's probably not legitimate. How can she do both? That's a scam. Sex workers have long been reduced to stereotypes: the temptress, the villain, the victim. These roles are comfortable for people. They keep us flat and small and easier to dismiss. But when we step into leadership roles, we create change. When we prove them wrong, the world has to adjust to us.
Mm.
Blazing new paths means leaving evidence. As Mia Mingus so brilliantly put it, evidence that sex workers are already leaders, visionaries, and agents of change. Evidence that the work we do is more than legitimate, it's vital. Our existence is the evidence. Ooh, I love it so much. Are you really doing all that good work, or is the nonprofit just a front? It says in quotes. Sweetheart, if I wanted to scam people, I'd be doing a lot less paperwork. I'd also probably be sipping champagne on a yacht instead of drafting proposals, writing programs, and buying tables. The truth is, the confusion and backlash I face aren't just about me, they're about what I represent. I represent the idea that a sex worker can be complex, that they can exist as a whole and powerful being, that we can lead nonprofits, fight for justice, and still own our sexuality.
Mm.
And that terrifies people because if a sex worker can be all those things, what else have they gotten wrong about their beliefs? It forces people to confront the stigma that they've been taught, the biases they cling to, the binary thinking that keeps them safe also keeps them small. Sex workers have always been at the forefront of movements for change. We fought for LGBTQIA plus rights, for safety, for dignity, for bodily autonomy. We've seen the ones that break the barriers and build communities and challenge the status quo. We've always been visionaries. The patriarchy thrives on these binaries, the Madonna or the whore, good or bad, worthy or disposable. These roles are designed to keep us small, easy to categorize, and therefore easy to dismiss. But when sex workers exist beyond those binaries, we threaten the very foundation of patriarchal control. Here's the thing. Sex workers have always been defiant. We've always known our worth, even when the world refused to see it. Our work, our bodies, and our voices have always been a threat to a system that depends on our silence. By living a criminalized existence, it makes you a rebel. But when you challenge deeply entrenched narratives, you face resistance. This is true everywhere, not just sex work. People will project their discomfort onto you. They'll question your legitimacy. They'll try to force you back into the box that makes them feel safe. The work I do today, both as a nonprofit leader and as a dominatrix, is leaving evidence. Evidence that sex workers are powerful. Evidence that we are more than the stereotypes. Evidence that we can hold space in every room and own it. The path isn't easy, right? I got chills. It's isolating at times. It's full of reactionary behaviors from people who can't fathom the truth that sex workers are already leaders, visionaries, and change makers. But for every bit of resistance, there is someone watching, someone inspired to follow. To my subs and fans, yes, I run a nonprofit. Yes, I advocate for systemic change. Yes, I still make the same videos and still take sessions. Just pick the lane, right? Okay, darling. I am both the fantasy in your head and the force of nature in the real world. Try to keep up. To my fellow sex workers, be complex, be powerful, and be unapologetic. Embrace every part of yourselves. Every step you take leaves evidence that we're not just breaking stigmas, we're building futures. The world may not be ready for us, but we've never waited for their permission.
I literally have goosebumps. Like
I have goosebumps and I want to cry.
I don't know what to lead in after that because I feel like that was everything said. If we could, I'd love to put that whole post along the staff room walls because it is that impactful. It's that empowering. And my God, it's nail on the head. Like, that's serious chills. It really is. And I mean, breaking stigma is one thing, coming into your power, but like put us in what box? Like there is no box that can limit sex workers. And I think sex work is amazing. Like it really is. It's not just about being comfortable with it and trying to break that stigma, but like literally we are shattering glass ceilings. And toot our own horns for a minute. Hello, this is us. Like two rub and tug owners, girls from the sex industry, now doing what? Creating a brand, starting a podcast. And what's next? I'll stay quiet for now, but it's limitless.
It is absolutely limitless. And I've said it to you personally. I've said it on the show many times. The entire reason why we get the backlash that we do is because we have always come into this business and this industry as change makers. We push the fucking envelope and we piss people off that were in very comfortable bubbles, right? We shattered all of that. We ruffled every feather And it's because most people cannot fathom that we are smart and hot and successful. It's just unfathomable to them. And it goes against like everything they believe. We must be evil, we must be shady, we must be this, we must be that. And they hate that there is zero evidence of that. And so they make up narratives and they do all the shenanigans and the bullshit. But through that, we have established the brand that you mentioned, the force that we are, because A, none of that bullshit has ever stopped us. B, we come through and prevail every single time. But we're also not afraid to continue to change and continue to push those very same envelopes. Muse will never be completely stagnant. It's just not our style.
Right.
It's just not what we do. And that stems into all the extensions.
Oh, no. People who sleep on the left side of the bed are more cheerful and are more calm. People who sleep on the right side of the bed earn the most money and are more planned and more organized. Someone has commented, she lives with her partner.
Yep.
My partner and I don't have designated sides. On any given night, we just jump into whatever side and it's fine.
Nah.
I don't like that.
No.
Where's your phone charger?
That's all, yeah.
Also, like, you got all your stuff in your bedside table.
Yeah.
Are you a bedside table
No
guy?
drawers, nah.
So where do you put your sex toys?
In my
It's her laugh. I love it.
It's her laugh, but like just randomly choosing what side is psychotic.
Okay.
You're craving something a little extra, aren't you? Subscribe to our Patreon and enjoy the ride.
I firmly believe, I don't know this woman, but I believe she wouldn't be in the nonprofit or advocacy realm that she is, as she is, without sex work.
Right.
And so, listen, I didn't ever think I was going to get into law advocacy, but chains of events happened. And before you know it, that was one of my roles. I never thought I was going to be into an educator role, but before you know it, things happened and that came into my role. And in all of those roles, I'm Emily. And so, again, nobody has a sex work resume, right? But I would fully, not that I'd ever be applying for a regular job, but mine would include those things because I've done XYZ with it that is beyond just sessions. And I think anyone that branches out and takes what they've learned, whether it's in the sex work realm or not, you are a better lawyer or a better teacher or a better, consult or whatever you're doing because of the knowledge and experience that you got in sex work, which is a completely unique and unmatched experience that you cannot find in any other job. And I think in that lies so much power and so much potential. And sex workers grab hold of that with so many reins. And especially now in society with the technology that we have, with social media platforms, with OnlyFans type platforms, and so on, even the trends of polyamorous and like experimental relationships, I think as a sex worker, a lot of those things are easier to digest in terms of societal change because we get it. We get it from a psychological standpoint, from a physiological standpoint. Even if it's not our jam, it makes sense. It's why we understand fetishes, right? It's why we often don't carry guilt. It's all of these things put together that actually make us more powerful than the average Joe. And no wonder they want to stifle us. No wonder they want to shut us down or keep us in a little box or in the shadows, is because, my God, imagine if these sexually liberated people were out here running things. Like, what would happen? Well, equality would happen. Understanding and empathy would happen. Focus on healthcare would happen. Like, so many of societal's problems could actually be fixed. I'm not saying all the horrors are going to rise up and change the world, but maybe, or maybe in a small pocket or in their city or in their community. Why not? We see it all the time. There's been famous, adult workers all over the world, all throughout history. I mean, most of like ancient times, it was glorified to be a sex worker. It was something young women were put through as a coming of age. It was before you could get married, you had to XYZ. You've got movies that glorify it in some ways, but can also rise it up in others, like a Pretty Woman. She found parts of herself through sex work that she would never have found. Okay, his money helped, but We've seen that in law reform. We've seen that in just most of, at least in Toronto, most of these sex work advocacy agencies and shelters and stuff are all run by former sex workers.
Mhm.
It's not like religious people out trying to help people. It's us. It's us trying to do it. It's us providing the rehab, or for us rescuing people, the cops to rescue people and put them through a system. Let's give them real life tools so they can do real life things. And those people end up giving back to those communities too. So like, she's right. We start futures. We keep the ball rolling. We think beyond the box in a way that can transform and eliminate stigmas that terrify people that are comfortable in them.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, from the original post and then to what you just said, I literally don't know what to say. Like it's no one likes an empowered woman, I think, in general, as a general statement. And sex workers are empowered. And if they can be in a position where they don't have to be ashamed or hide what they do, which I think is becoming more and more the norm, they are powerful. Yeah. They are entrepreneurs. They are, like I said, like shattering glass ceilings. And we can. That is the point. And I mean, there are so many women through history, really, I'm sure. But a few come to the top of my mind immediately. One even we spoke to on the pod, Annie Temple. She is a fantastic human being who has made this an entire career for herself. And that's not just by luck, that's by smarts. So women are capitalizing on themselves and taking ownership over the industry, their bodies, and just killing it, really.
It's true. I mean, even here in terms of about 10 years ago, there was a change in our prostitution laws, and it took a very brave sex worker. Terry Jean Bedford had to lead the charge in terms of pushing for 10 years prior to that through the court systems, through wins and losses and appeals, and obviously the financial burden, the exposure, the backlash, all those things, just to get the case, to get the Supreme Court to even listen to it, let alone make a deciding ruling on it, and then all of us pushing forward for new and better laws, right? Which is a separate battle. The new laws fight was dicey, but her quest was beyond admirable. It was brave. It was heroic. It was something that empowered all of us to think, if I was ever placed in a situation like that, because listen, nobody wants to be in a situation like that where you have to put yourself out there to the public eye. But if I was, I would take inspiration from women like her, because they never let any of that stuff stop them, make them back down, make them just, go away, take a payoff, agree, or just take the loss and go home. She kept fighting. And she kept fighting because she knew what was right and what was wrong. And it had nothing to do with her work. It had to do with equality and human rights. And I think anyone that's on a quest for anything regarding human rights is automatically on the winning team, because they are human rights for a reason. They're the basics and fundamental foundations of what living on this planet should be, right? And so whether you're pushing for healthcare, whether you're pushing for, women's rights, whether you're pushing for abortion or tax cuts, like no matter what it is, if it's for the betterment of human rights and people, you're automatically on that side. And it takes time for governments and courts and laws and all those things to catch up with us. And I think that is absolutely amazing when it comes to the legal side. Even though the legal side can be a little snooze, boring, it's not flashy, it's powerful stuff, and it affects millions of people in one foul swoop. And there's very few things in the world that have that kind of power or that kind of impact on communities and generations to come. I think a place like ours wouldn't exist without the warriors before it. And those that made the laws possible, that body rubs could even exist, and what will come ahead. I hope we're part of those forces too, that make it safer and better for workers all over the world, but specifically in our city, because listen, as nice as our system is, there's still a lot of problems. There's still things that can be very much improved with our bylaws, with our laws, with protecting workers, with, listen, even protecting customers, right? And without having the balls to be Terry Jean Bedford or whoever you are that comes forward, or Damina Snow, and speak about things or put words into action. Oh, I love a woman like that. I love there's movies made about women like
Yeah.
that. It's so powerful and so fantastical and goes against the patriarchy so much
Mhm.
that it makes them very, very angry. And I
Mhm.
find that part fun because I'm like,
It
be
does.
mad, stay
It
mad.
makes it makes men angry for sure. I think it makes some women angry. And
Very much.
I think it's much more digestible for them to keep us in this box and be silent and behind the shadows. But a post like Demina Snow's is, to me, the most epic thing I've read all year. I mean, the year's about to
Yeah.
close out. All year, this is the best thing I've read. She's brilliant. I want her on the show, really.
Oh, I could totally see if we can make that happen. That'd be fantastic. I totally agree.
Yeah, I'll
On
come and
that
join.
note, I love it. This was a really great conversation. I feel
Yeah,
so like inspired and kind of like a little pep in my step
absolutely.
now. I'm like, ooh, we gotta fight more. We gotta do more. Like, let's get on the ball. Let's have a meeting later.
Women are
let's,
amazing.
let's brainstorm. Yeah, there's a lot of power in the pussy. I think it's so good. Well, guys, share your thoughts and comments definitely down below. Again, make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us on social media and catch us every Monday, Wednesday, and Sundays all over the internet.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
guys. Mwah.